Hello, thank you very much for the warm welcome. I'm Daniel Petovsky, and I want to show you today the introduction to our managed cloud services for Azure. So something about me. I'm the Azure Cloud Architect. I'm working for Deutsche Telekom group since 2007. I had a little pause from Magenta for the 4 years when I wanted to try some new challenges. And now I'm back with Magenta. Since 2007, I was working as a Windows engineer, and then I worked with some automation. And during my pause, I was working as a consultant, mostly for data center migrations. So the question is, why managed cloud services? The main point is that there is a demand from business to IT. You know it when you are doing a new project that business is pushing on a project manager. Let's deploy our new application fast and let it be soon on the market. But in the normal data center or on-premises world, it's a little bit harder. You have to order new hardware. You have to you have to do the connections, cabling, some development, and so on. So then you will turn to the cloud services. It doesn't matter, it can be Azure, AWS, or Google. But then you start to feel that there is some challenge also for your IT personnel, because your IT personnel will tell you, okay, we will try something to build in the cloud, but they are stuck in the legacy application world. You have network engineers, you have, for example, Windows engineers, you have Linux engineers, but you do not have a guy that is certified for the cloud operations, because in the cloud it's different. You have new responsibilities, like you have responsibilities for the cloud spending, cloud control, you have responsibilities for the security. You are network engineer, you are OS platform engineer, you are everything in one person. So you have to have a good overview. And then there is a risk for your company. And regarding the risks for your company is that you won't have, without the cloud, you won't have an application, for example, developed on time to be on the market, or you have some security issues, because you have to know how to deploy or how to work in cloud. And then there are many services that you have to have orientation in. So I'll give you an example that, for example, in the Microsoft's online service portfolio, the current service count is almost 3,000 services. It's complete from the IaaS services, SaaS, and also PaaS services. And this count was less than 80% in the January. And this number is currently now from the September 2020. And what we want to do is to balance requirements of the infrastructure, of the IT, and also balance the requirements of the development. When you had a traditional IT, the on-premises world, there was a governance and control that was driving with the ITIL processes and security processes and so on. But the developers haven't been so happy because of all these processes. So there were some experience and POC where you had more freedom, like sandbox environment, or you can just be dropped to the shadow IT where you have not so much control over your IT and security. And what we are bringing with our product is the best of the two worlds, where you have freedom and productivity, and also the governance and control. MCSAz for Azure. So what do we offer? In this slide, you can see in the bottom classic services or the backbone services that are offered standard with Azure, that you have subscription, you can deploy in 60 plus regions, you have IaaS, PaaS, SaaS services, you have some resource groups, Azure Active Directory. We have two stages of our product. The first one is the foundation, and the second one is advanced. In the foundation stage, you can see it like that we are offering the deployment of the landing zone. What is a landing zone, I will explain in the next slide. But with this landing zone, you will get managed core resources, managed Azure policies. For example, you can restrict in which region you want to deploy resources and so on. You will get a managed resource group, and in this resource group, as a requester, you will be the contributor in this resource group. But for example, regarding the core resources, you cannot break the VNet configuration for this resource group because it's managed by us. But in your resource group, you can do a self-service. You can deploy VM, you can deploy a PaaS service by yourself, and we are taking care about all the things around. And with the advanced services, we are going further. So we are also managing your stuff, which is running inside your resource groups. So for example, managed Windows, managed Linux, we are managing operating system. Then we are taking care of that you have anti-malware protection, that servers are properly patched. Then we are taking care about the security and compliance, the backup and recovery. And so also the reporting. And what is a landing zone in our MCS product? So the landing zone is basically, it is a connection between the customer's subscription or customer AAD tenant and our TSystems management tenant. This is connected via AAD application through which we'll get access to the customer tenant. And in our management subscription, we have resources deployed, which are for managing, for deployment, for reporting, monitoring. So for example, some compliance framework runbooks, then monitoring runbooks, billing framework runbooks, Azure Lighthouse group assignment. So then some privilege identity management and so on. And in the customer subscription, there are directly resources deployed. So classical VNet, peering, routing, ARM templates, backup plans, tags, patch plans, and so on. So on the next slide, I want to show you some high-level architecture of our product. So basically, on the right side, you can see the customer subscription. And on the left side, you can see our TSI operational subscription. So in this subscription, we are keeping all our frameworks. We have their Azure DevOps running, repos, pipelines, AAD, privilege identity management. And we are taking care of about the deployment framework, compliance framework, alert handling. And this is how it looks like when the landing zone is deployed. So in the customer subscription, we are using the management resource group and the global resource group. In the global resource group, it is our management group, but both groups are ours. We are taking care of them. And this is hosting our, I would say, local resources. And in the global management group, we are storing scripts, runbooks, and so on. In the management resource group, we are storing the VNets, then the recovery vaults, and from the pipeline, we can deploy the managed resource groups. And for each managed resource group, we will assign a subnet that it is defined by the customer. Then per each resource group, there is a defined recovery vault. And there are also resources tagged. So regarding the tagging, we have a tagging for the owner of the resource group, for the contact details of the technical person, for example. Then we have tags regarding the patching schedules plan and so on. So here on the next slide, I want to tell you a little about the Azure resiliency and high availability, as it is one important part of our pillar regarding the deployment. So if you want to have some SLAs, then you have to follow some rules with the deployment. It's not automatically that you will get the information about the SLAs or how you have to deploy a VM. If you want to achieve some SLA, you have to just read the Microsoft documentation and read the conditions for the SLAs that you are meeting some SLAs. So for example, for a single VM, if you want to reach 99.9 SLA, it requires premium storage disks. For 99.5, it requires standard SSD. It must be SSD. And for 95.0, it requires standard HDD disk. I have a typo there, doesn't matter. Okay, then if you want to have, for example, 99.95, you have to use availability sets. And availability sets are, you can see it as a hardware cluster inside the data center. So if something goes wrong on one box, for example, network or cooling or something, some hardware failure, then your workload will run on another box. And if you want to achieve a higher SLA, so 99.99%, you will be protected by splitting the workload, the VMs, into more data centers. So for example, in the data center 1, and another is in data center 2. These are availability zones. And usually the Azure region has from 1 to 3 data centers. And if you want to have regional protection, so from the larger disaster, like flooding or earthquake or something, then you are using regional pairs. So when we were talking about the SLAs and how to achieve it, then with our product, you do not have to take care if you want to achieve or how you will achieve the SLA. Okay, I have some problems with the clicker. Okay, so our first pillar is deployment, and it's also managed templates. Is a self-service for the customer when he can ease the deployment of Azure resources for business users or for the IT personnel, and it is following the best practices regarding the deployment, as for example, meeting the SLA, as I already mentioned, and its optimal integration with our product, as it's already including some settings that are required to be secure and compliant. And also it enhances the security with the secure stored credentials. So, and because for each managed resource group, we are also creating a key vault where the secrets are stored. And for the key vault, only the contributor to the managed resource group has the access. And when the user is deploying VM with our template, then the administrator username is generated and stored in a key vault, and also the password is generated. So you're not putting some plain text usernames or password directly while deploying. So this is the example of one template. It is the template for the Windows Server deployment. So here you can choose the flavor of the Windows Server you want to deploy. You can choose the SLA you want to meet with this. Then automatically you have to choose 2 VMs if you want to achieve 99.99 SLA. And if you will choose, for example, 1 VM, then there will be an error message showing you that you are not meeting the SLA. You have to keep the VM count at least at 2. And also it is, for example, for the load balancer. So it is possible also to deploy with these VMs to the availability zone also the load balancer automatically, which will be connected to the VMs. And also it is the same. So if you want to achieve this SLA, if you will just choose the SKU for the load balancer to basic, it's just will throw an error that you cannot deploy a load balancer with a basic SKU because you are not meeting SLA. You have to use the standard one. And this is how it looks like when you deploy the resources with the template in the deployment overview. So both servers are deployed with the network adapters and also with the load balancer. Then another important pillar in our product is the security and compliance. And this is not shown very good, but it is operational security, then the policy framework, the compliance framework, and the centralized logging. Regarding the operational security, we are doing we are making sure that no standing access rights are on the resources. So for example, we are using privileged identity management, where you can choose the assignment of the access to the resources, for example, 4 hours. And also you have to give a reason why you want to access the resources. And then you can see it logged. Who accessed the resources, what was the reason, why he requested the access to the resources, and so on. Then we are using also the least privilege. And least privileges, in this example, if you are, for example, backup operator, then we won't make you the contributor on the subscription level, or we won't make you a contributor on the resource group. You will be just assigned with a backup operator role, or if you just some kind of, business person or auditor, you will be just assigned with the reader right. Then we have a highly automated operations. So we want to automate everything that it can be automated, because then we can prevent the human errors during the interactions with the resources. So for example, patch management, we have automated patch management of the Windows and Linux systems according to the schedule and the groups. Also securing that, for example, the cluster nodes are not patched in the same time, but one node is patched in the morning, then another node is patched in the afternoon. And regarding the operational security, everything is auditable. So you can search the activity log, you can have a look in the privileged identity management events, who requested what, and we have everything logged in our centralized logging system. Then we have another part of the security and compliance, and this is a policy framework. Policy framework is based on the cloud native capabilities of Azure, and we have about 45 plus custom policies, and this ensures governance and security over the Azure resources that are deployed in your environment. And these policies addresses preventive and detective actions, like for example that all resources in the managed resource group are tagged properly. All resources have a tag for the patching. It, for example, ensures that storage is encrypted and so on. Then another part of our security and compliance is a compliance framework. And the compliance framework is a custom-built governance and security framework which ensures that deployed Azure resources are compliant with security and business requirements. So it ensures that the reactive actions will be performed automatically. For example, if the tag is missing, then the tag is added automatically on resources. Or, for example, if the Azure SQL database is not in the compliant state, then it will be done automatically. Then another part is on another slide. You can see how the policy and compliance framework work in action. So this is also the screenshot from the deployment from the template that I showed you. So when the Windows Server was deployed, the first policy deployed the monitoring agent. The second policy ensured that anti-malware protection is deployed. The third policy ensured that there is a backup set. And the last policy ensured that there is an Azure policy set on the Windows operating system. And the last part of our security and compliance is centralized logging. And with the centralized logging solution via Azure Monitor, we are collecting logs, metrics, and diagnostic data, which we are later using also for the alerting. And then another important pillar, last important pillar from our product is monitoring and reporting. And here we have 3 main sections, which is customized alerting rules. So we have about 40 plus custom alerting rules, which we are implementing for each managed resource group or for each landing zone. And the resources in the managed resource group are automatically monitored. I can show you a screenshot. I hope you can see it. So this is an example of the customized alerting rules, where we have written our own queries just to get all the important alerts from the machines. So for example, from the Linux machines, the use space on the root drive, on the other drives, from the Windows machines, memory usage, from the both Linux or Windows, the CPU percentage, CPU usage, some audit logs from the event, then the error events from the Windows machines, then the logs from the Linux syslog, and so on. And we have the rules not only for the platform or for the operating systems, but as you can see, we have also rules for databases, for MariaDB, for Cosmos DB, Azure SQL, then for the native SQL installation on the Windows Server, and so on. And then we have a TSystems alerting framework. By the way, this was developed by my colleague, which was presenting before, by Christian. And this is also the important part of the monitoring solution, as I will explain that we are getting the metrics and alerts from the log analytics, and we are getting this with the rules as alerts, but there is no great conformity how you can view the alerts or how you can format the alerts. So because of this, it's going through the TSystems alerting framework, which Christian developed, and which is then consolidating the alerts from the machines. So if you have, for example, alert for percentage for CPU percentage usage on the machine, then it will come every 5 minutes as an email, and you can see then a person from service desk calling that please, we are getting like 1,000 emails and so on. So, and this is why it goes through the TSystems alerting framework, which will consolidate these alerts, and it will suppress the alert, so it just won't come. And then the alerting framework takes care that only, for example, one email is sent when there is an alert for this particular machine, and then when it's resolved, then alerting starts again from the beginning. And then we can get alerts to the mobile phone or to the automation, so the automation will process the alert and do, for example, some reactive action, or then via email directly to the customer or to the service desk. And then we have the last section from our monitoring and reporting. This is Azure Cost Control. Azure Cost Control, there is a main difference between Azure Cost Control, our product, and cost budget, as you can see it in the Azure subscription. Because, for example, with the Azure Cost Control, you can pull the reports from the live environments with a few clicks via a nice dashboard, and it's easy to use, for example, for the service delivery managers or for the project managers or just for the billing person who have no experience with IT. So this is like the main difference. Okay, so that was all regarding some very little introduction to our product, and I hope you like it.